Okay, so till last sessions we have learned about the model, where actually we have learned how to get the data from the database through view object, entity object, in writing the custom methods in the application module. Everything we have seen. Now the user interface time. Whatever we have written just in this, now we want to show it on the screen. That's what we need to do. You know what we did? We did some logic. We wrote some methods. We have created entity objects and view objects, and we tried to show it up on the JDeveloper using the test. That's what we have done till now. Now, what I am trying to do now, whatever we have done till now as part of testing, in reality, what happens? In reality, in the Fusion applications, the web pages will be there. So we have to create a web pages where actually we can show our data, where we can manipulate our data, where we can play around with our custom process. So we have to create the web pages. To go with that, all our web pages will be created in the user interface, right? So as I was showing in the architecture previously, we have the user interface, that is view. This view, we have the swing, mobile, and browser based. So till yesterday we were seeing the desktop. In the ADP swing, we were actually doing some testing. Actually, we can develop some desktop applications as well using ADF, and we can create a browser based pages as well. These browser based pages basically we deploy in the Fusion applications if you build any. Okay, and by the same concept of browser based, we can create the mobile application as well. That is called MAF, Mobile Application Framework. Okay, and we have seen the model where actually we have created the entity objects, view objects, application module. So in all these cases where we are pulling the data, we are pulling the data from the database. Basically, we are pulling data from the database, right? And similarly, not only database, we can pull data from web services. That's what we're going to see tomorrow. We can also pull data from legacy systems if we have that level of provision, and you can pull data from other applications too. Okay, so yeah, this business services basically, actually model and business services comes together. Basically, when I say ADF BS, it is nothing but ADF business components. What are the ADF business components? Entity object, view object, and application module are called ADF BC, ADF business components. Internally, ADF business components uses Java and EZB. These all three that comes together. This data binding, ADF binding, nothing but this data controller, basically where we use basically we use application module and data controller. Basically we use both of them to show up data in the view. Okay, now we have seen this. Now let's talk about this view, how we can show data on your web page. So the building of this model is difficult one. Once you have this, anyone can develop the user interface because ADF has made it so simple actually. Okay, all we need to do, all the developers, whoever is there, they have to create this model, they have to create this view object, entity object, application modules, and methods. Once methods are ready, all it is actually drag and drop. Not much coding is needed. With very little coding, you have the provision to create the user interface. Okay, let's see how it happens. Okay, till yesterday, let me clear the log. We have created the entity object, and we have the two view objects, and one view object is based on the, this is the one view object based on the country Evo, and we have another view object, it's standalone view object based on SQL query. That's what it is. And we have one application module. This application module has the references to these two view objects. We have two view objects. For these two objects, we have the references in the application module, right? So we have the data model, and we have those two view object references. This is a structure. That is our model. Okay, let us go and see how we can create the user interface. To create a user interface, typically I am going to show you the structure. So it is a view objects which are registered in the application module. That's what it is. Let me close all this. Right. So these are all comes under application resources, which is comes under model project. And we have another project called view controller. This is the place where we create our front-end user interfaces. Basically, in this view controller, let me okay. So in this view controller, we have two folders: application sources and web content. So application sources, we have meta INF folder. Basically, it is having a ADF settings folder. Just remember this, what folder structure it is. We won't be using most of these folder structures. We will be using it if you go for advanced concepts, basically. So this ADF settings.xml file, typically we use it for file controller configurations. So typically in our case, we are using only one data control, basically based on our application module. Based on application module, we have only one data controller, and this data controller has two view object instances because our application module has two view instances. And within our application module, we have written these many methods yesterday. Method 1, method 2, method 3, 4, 5. We have created these many methods, and these many methods are exposed in our application module, right? Yesterday we have created all these methods. We have created these many methods. It means we can use all these methods in the user front-end user interface. And similarly, we have these view objects, which we can again use it to show up on the user interface. We have that provision, right? So what typically happens here is, if we have more than one data controller, then this ADF settings.xml plays into the picture, where we can control, we can have the configuration of these data controllers. Okay, as of this session, it is not much useful. And we have another folder called web content. In this web content folder, we have bunch of files. Under WebNIF, we have a bunch of file called ADFC config. If we go with the task flows, in sense, in the Fusion application, we have seen the task list. Whenever we go to any screen, in the right side, we have seen the task list, right? So if I open the Fusion application, so here we have the list of tasks, and if those tasks we have to bound them together, then typically we have to use this XML file. Means we won't create anything here, but whenever we start creating the task list and task components, their data will start showing up on this configuration file. Okay, as of now we don't have any task list got created. It is still a blank. That is one thing. And we have another file called faces config. The ADFC config and faces config both are actually same. So what happens in our ADF framework is, whenever the front-end files got created, we use just a couple of frameworks. The first one is ADF framework, next one is Java faces framework, and third one is Trinidad config framework. Basically, all these frameworks are combined together in the ADF. So what typically happens is, whatever the configurations are given in this ADFC config file, okay, so if it is config file, so it has, we can have work, we can have the bounded task flows can be created using this ADF framework as well, this faces config framework as well. So in both the cases, the difference is Java faces has more features, user interface rich features available in the faces config, but the functionality wise, it has less functionalities compared to ADFC config. So what are the functionalities? When we talk about the task bounds, you will understand that. And third one is Trinidad config.xml file. Typically, we use this XML file if you wanted to implement cascading style sheets. So Trinidad config, this actually user interface component series developed by Oracle back in 2001 and 2002, and later they donated it to Apache, and Apache is maintaining those CSS files now, and ADF got it back. And then using in the ADF framework to maintain the cascading style sheets. Using cascading style sheets, we can create the skins. So example, let me show you. So if you log into the application, so application, the look and feel, right? The look and feel, this is a one kind of look and feel, which has a blue background, and we have the larger images, and we have one kind of font here. So we can have multiple styles of the front-end design. I'm going to talk about the page themes. When I talk about customization, I will show you how we can modify this page actually, how many predefined themes or predefined skins given by the Oracle, and how we can apply it in our application so that those skins and themes will get reflected on your Fusion applications. If you want those themes to get created, you should rely on this Trinidad config file, where you can create a cascading style sheets and they can define the skin families basically. Example, if I open this Trinidad config.xml file, by default the skin family is Alta. Alta skin family means it is one kind of family where that has come up with a background, predefined font name, and a predefined front color and background color, like that. So you can also create your own skins, and you can also have that skins created in this config.xml file. Once you create that skin will get applied to each and every page that we develop on this application, on this project actually. So that's what it is. And we have web.xml file, which is actually created for each and every web project that we create. If it is a web project, then this web.xml file will be created. This web.xml file actually says how do the system should behave basically. So it has a long list of the predefined XML tags basically, which will say what is our servlet name here and what are the resources we are using here. So it actually controls how the application should behave. It actually defines the user interface components, and it helps us to deploy these components on web server and application server. And not only that, it helps us to communicate whenever we create a page, whenever we open a page, whenever we do any operation. Internally, it will interact to the application server. That communication between a web page and application server again comes along with the web.xml file. It will define the context parameters. It will define when error happens, what should be the error page. If we do log out, what should be the logout page. If you log into the application, what should be the login page or landing page. All those things will be defined in this web.xml file. In fact, we won't create anything here. Most of things will be taken care by default with the ADF framework. Okay, it is just about the list of files what we have in this view controller. So let's actually go into the reality. Let's start creating our first page in our ADF framework, because we already have all the core logic defined in application module. Let's start creating the web page. To create a web page, what we can do, either you can click on this web content and right click new page, or you can click on the web.inf and right click new on page. Both are same basically. So I'm going to here web content, and I'm going to click on new and going to create a page. Okay, I'm going to create a new web page now. So when I create a page, it has a list of options while creating the page. Do you want to create a blank page, or do you want to create a page defined on based on a template, or do you want to define a page based on some layout? So what happened? It's still opening up based on the layout. So based on the kind of option you choose, that the file creation will vary basically. Still not opening up. Okay, it opened up. So let me see the performance once. Okay, so page got opened up here. So it is my first page where I can start creating my a front-end user interface. Okay, so file name, see here, there are two document types here. We have facelets and we have JSP XML file. So what does it mean? If it is facelets, it's nothing but Java faces. You are using a Java faces framework. And JSP XML is nothing but Java server pages XML. All the pages with JSP XML will end with .jspx. And if it is facelets, it ends with faces. So what is this means? Basically, whatever framework, whatever option you choose at the end of the day, when it comes into the Fusion applications, basically data will be displayed, the display will be the same. But typically what happens for any web pages, typically there is, when any web page go to a browser, before displaying on the browser, we have something called DOM, that is called document object model. What document object model will do, it will get the page, before displaying on the browser. The document object model identify what page it is receiving. Is it receiving a JSPX page, or receiving a facelet page, or receiving some HTML page? Whatever page it is receiving, based on that, it will study that page and keep displaying over it. So basically, you can choose either of this. Basically, if you go with the JSP XML, then you have to create your page based on the XML tags. If you go with the facelets, Oracle ADF has given a provision to drag and drop most of the fields. So that's why I'm choosing facelets here. Let me give my page file name as hello world. That's my first page, hello world.jsf. Okay, now the directory here. So whenever you create any page, all those pages will go into the view controller project. We know it, till now we know it. And under that, we go into public_HTML page. Any page that you create, all those pages will go into the public.html page, HTML folder, because that is where you have to go, you have to place all the files, so that when we deploy this project in the application server, then public.html will follow structure, will identify where to merge our files in the Fusion application directory. So we have to make sure all the files go into public.html _html. Okay, and document type as facelets, and we can do JSP XML as well, but difference is we have to create pages in the XML file. Now, page layout, we have three options: create blank page or refer a template. We have a couple of templates given by the Oracle. See, this is the template, Oracle 3-column template, Oracle dynamic tab shell template. Basically, it's still opening up. So basically, if Oracle has given a couple of templates, you can choose the template and start building the page as well. So it's still opening up. Oracle dynamic tab shell resembles most of our Fusion application pages. So we have a couple of templates given here. You can either you can begin by choosing the template, or you can go with a blank page, or we have another thing called layout. That's another option as well. I will just show you the template, but I will start creating from the blank page. That will make us to understand how we can organize the components of the page and how we can see the data of the page. Okay, let me close down some of my Okay, becoming very slow. Let me. Yeah, Jira is taking 1.6 GB. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me kill it and then start again. Okay, so let me start again. Yeah, the web page development in ADF framework is a lot easier than what we have done in the Oracle application framework, if anyone have done in OEF. So ADF has simplified a lot many options to us, basically where most of the web page development happens to drag and drop, and the way of the number of features ADF framework has given is also many more, and we can get it from ADF framework or Java, so Java faces, or we can get it from the Trinidad config files, and we can combine the features from all these frameworks and build up the good web pages. Basically, what are pages we are showing up here? Everything is built on the Java faces. See here, faces nothing but Java faces, and most of these pages were built on the Java faces, basically.
Lakshmi.
Yeah.
In the SAS model also, in the web.xml, is it accessible? We can do changes also?
No, it's not accessible in the SAS model. Can't do that. But if you go to the PaaS model,
okay.
If you go to the PaaS model, so basically what happens is PaaS model is not like how we are getting SAS. PaaS, they won't give PaaS like that. PaaS contains around 40 different components. So we have to choose what you want out of those 40, basically. So example, Java Cloud Service is one feature. Integration Cloud Service is one feature. Our database cloud service is one feature. So whatever service you choose, based on that, your development will be different. I'll talk about those PaaS components later, maybe a different time.
So what is the difference between PaaS and PaaS extension?
PaaS and SAS extension or PaaS extension?
PaaS extension.
Basically, we have SAS extensions.
Okay.
Yeah, we have SAS extensions. Basically, on your SAS model, you can buy some services from the cloud and apply it on your SAS environment. That is called SAS extensions. So basically, when I was saying like if you wanted to integrate your SAS environment with your ERP, EBS applications. If you want to do the integrations, then you have two options. You can go and write your own custom programs to call web services in the Fusion and integrate with the EBS. That is one way. Other way is Oracle has given something called Integration Cloud Services as a SaaS extensions. That Integration Cloud Services, what is there is a predefined, already written web services which interact with the SaaS application. The web services are written there. So what all you need to do if you buy the Integration Cloud Service from the Oracle, all you need to do is drag and drop the components which actually builds the web services in the background and start talking to the cloud SaaS application. And also if you have an adapter in your EBS, that also comes as a patch for the ERP application, then Integration Cloud Service has an option to connect to your adapter in the EBS and keep talking to the EBS as well without a zero coding. So those kind of services can be connected to the SaaS application to start talking to the multiple applications. That is called Integration Cloud Service. That is a SaaS extension. Okay. So yeah, I'm coming back to my page again. So I'm going to create a new page here. New page. And
so where do I find that whether this model SaaS is an extension, it is available, extension is available or not? Where can I find it? Where can I see in the front end?
Okay, I prepared a small document on that long time back. I will share you basically which services called as SaaS extensions, which services are called real platform as application. So I will talk about that on a different session with all the components what I have captured. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we have that. Let me create this page again. Hello world, and this is the blank page, and we have predefined templates here. I can choose any of the template and start creating. It's taking a long time to load the template. So basically, if you observe at the back end, it is calling the library basically, and it is trying to pull the templates. It is extracting the jar file and executing that program to show up the preview basically. So that's the reason as we're accessing for the first time, not first time basically, I was accessing a couple of times with the same version. Okay, so let me start creating it from the blank page. Okay, so click on OK. Now I'm going to get to my first page. So what happens to my page? By default, my page opens up in the design mode. Basically, we have several modes. We have design mode, source mode, and then two modes. And we have another thing called structure mode. I will show the structure mode. It will open in different modes actually. So design mode, nothing but whenever you create any page, if you keep dragging the components on this page, basically it will keep rendering that page. So the design mode will work. It's still initializing. If design mode will work, if we have 10 components or less than 10 components. If we have more than that, then design mode actually becomes really clumsy. So most of the developers won't use this design mode. Typically, they go with the source mode. Source mode, typically, it's actually in XML format where we have the whatever components we define, those components will be structured in XML tags. Okay, so let me open that. Okay, it's my source mode. So it is my source mode. By default, the source mode has a couple of tags. Any XML file have these two lines. Basically, the first line is saying that you are in the UTF-8 character set, and it's a comment, HTML. And now it has the three tags, F tag, AF tag, sorry, F tag, XML namespace, document tag, and form tag. We have three basically. So wherever you say the F means it is Java faces. Wherever you see AF, it means ADF framework. Wherever you see H, it means HTML. Wherever you see TRS, it means JavaScript. So every tag has its own meaning, but in reality, we will be working mostly on this document and the form tags basically. Okay. Now coming to this definition, in the F tag, we have something called XML-NS. XML-NS is nothing but XML namespace. What does it mean? It means saying that in the XML namespace, all these Java phases are being referring this package. It's nothing but if in Java, if you say import package name, or if you say C, you say hash include some library. In Oracle, we can include the package. Similar to that, it means that whatever we are going to trying to do below, basically we are referring this package. For this Java phases, we are referring the java.sun.com JSF and core package. Similarly, for ADF framework, we are referring the HTTP XML NS oracle.com ADF phases rich components. That's the meaning of it. Okay. And then we have the document. So document is actually like whenever we open a tab, right? This tab is nothing but a document. So this is a document. It is second document. It is third document. It is fourth document. These are called documents. Okay. And here we have the document. We have given the title as hello world.jsf. What happens is when I run this page, it will show hello world.jsf here. Okay. Instead of hello world.jsf, I will say that rainbow applications, something like that. Okay. So it means when I run this page, this tab name will become the rainbow applications. Okay. Now within the document tag, we have something called form tag. Form tag is very important. Any user interface you are trying to show up on the page, all those interface should go between these form tags. It should go here. Any user interface you are thinking of, all those user interface should go into this form tag. That is very important. Okay. And anything. Example, let us say I wanted to display something here. I want just some text saying that, let us say, welcome to Rainbow application, something like that. For that, I want to keep a text. It means I wanted to keep a simple user interface component. When I run the page, Rainbow application tab will come here, and on this page, I wanted to display some text. If that is the case, typically in our previous legacy systems, we used to write everything in Java coding. Even in Oracle application framework, we have to go with the Java coding in the process request, process form request methods. Here it is very simple. We have the list of components, different components given here. It is the ADF faces library, basically, because we choose the facelets page. So here we have a list of controls available here. General controls, button, context info, icon, image, link, media, progress indicator, location, breadcrumb, train, button bar, and we have text and selections. In the text and selection, we have where varieties of checkbox select many, choice, list, choice color, choice date. We have many things given here. Output text active. In our case, we wanted to get the output text. So what you can do, you can click it, then automatically, two things you can do. You can hold it and bring it here like this in between this. You can bring it here like this between this form tag. You can bring it and drop it like this. Or what you can do, just go here and click it. It automatically brings it here. How it came here? You kept a cursor there and you went here and just clicked it. So automatically it came up here, right? So here it is saying that it's saying that we have that output text, value as output text. So value as output text, maybe here I can display as welcome to Rainbow Applications, something like that. Here the value, right? This value you can write it here, or you can write it here, or if you click on this output text, we have the properties window come up here, which is typical to output text property. And here you have the value here, and here also you can enter the value. Welcome to Rainbow Applications. You can just say like this. Okay, and here we can say that, and you can when you say that, then automatically the value will update here. Okay, and when you click on that, automatically properties window show up here. Maybe you wanted to mention the style, you want to mention the color, maybe you want to mention the color of some blue, something like that, and maybe you wanted to increase the font size to large, you can say that. And if you wanted to make anything like style, maybe italic or whatever, we have long varieties of options what you can do here. I want to bring a bold color and whatever you can bring long, you can use long varieties of these colors here or combinations here, and you can keep doing your stuff. Even if colors also, we have something called edit color, where you can choose whatever your color you want it to, and you have that provision. So whenever I choose properties, if you observe here, automatically you are getting some properties here saying that font size is large and color is this one. And whenever you're applying some changes on this one, automatically if you go to the design, so design, actual design mode, it will show how the data is being displayed and how the data is being showing up. So it is rendering up, and whenever we choose that output text, whatever text we have choose, whatever value we have given, that value will show up on this page, which will give us a visibility of how the page is going to be look alike on the screen. Okay, right now I just kept my simple text, and if I wanted to let it come, now what I wanted to do, I just want to run this page. So till now we are running the application whenever we are creating some model component like a view object or entity object, and we are running the application module and seeing the data in our tester. Okay, till now we haven't deployed any application on any server. We were just testing it using our tester, right? So whenever we create a page, basically what we need to do, any Java project, typically what happens is whenever we create web pages, basically based on our business components, we have business components. On top of it, we create our Java or our user interface web pages. Then what typically we do, we combine this together, create a WAR file, basically WAR file or jar file. Basically, it's nothing but it's combining everything together in a predefined structure. Once we have that WAR file, then we take the WAR file and deploy it in the server. So that server can be our local server, which is on my computer, or that can be a Fusion application server. I can take that WAR file to my Fusion application server and deploy there. Or in your company, you have your own WebLogic server or whatever, you can take your WAR file there and deploy it there. So how many options basically. So for our test cases, what I'm going to do, for our test cases, we are going to deploy in my local server. So how to deploy it? In JDeveloper, it simplified that job as well. Every day, JDeveloper comes along with an integrated web server, basically. So if you go to run, we have integrated WebLogic server. Okay, so whenever if I run any page, basically, if I run the page, what typically happens is it typically starts this integrated WebLogic server, and this page along with these business components, whatever we have created in the model project, along with these business components, AM, EVO, VIVO, all those things combined together and get deployed in our integrated web logic server, and our output will get displayed, as simple as such. Okay, so let me do that. Let me save it and let me take it and run it and keep observing the console here. So enable resolve the log file. It's fine. Okay, so maybe let me try starting it. Maybe I just let me copy this folder and maybe I killed it in between. That's the reason. And no, 844. Let me try it. Oh. Unexpected. So let me do the safe close of this one and then try to start it. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. Okay, let me try it out. Let's see, how does it work? So while it opens up, let me show you something about pass model components. So it is actually starting the Java as well. That's why it's taking some time.
Lakshmi,
Uh-huh.
you will be taking personalization separately, right?
Yes, I'm taking it separately.
Okay.
Yeah. So the personalization, yeah, actually when I'm talking about user interfaces now, if we understand the architecture behind the user interface, the personalization will be very easy. We can understand how the components are working there. So let me try to, yeah. Okay, so it came up. Let's see. So yeah, it is trying to start the server. So by default, if you go with integrated WebLogic server, port number 7101 and 7102 will be used, and the IP address will be 127.0.0.1. It's starting the server. Once the server gets started, whatever application we created, this application will get deployed in the this integrated WebLogic server. Once it is deployed, then then we just need to, it will give a web page link. We just need to use that link to see how our page is looking for. Okay, so let's do that. System is very slow today. I was running a couple of background jobs for my Talia project.
Then Lakshmi, if you can reboot it, it will be faster. We can wait for 5 minutes. It might not be a problem.
Right, yeah, that's what I will do. If give me 1 minute for this one. If it still the same, then I will do that. Basically, when we start the integration with WebLogic server, time will be same time will take, even I run with a normal mode as well. For the first time, because I have multiple applications created in my project actually, and some of them are very huge. Okay, meanwhile, I was trying to show you the PaaS components. Let me log into that. I'm just pausing a share for a minute. I'm just opening a link. Okay, so see that it is actually creating a web application module called viewcontroller file, and it is deploying this WAR file into this system 12.2.1.342 because that is a place where we have actually our web WebLogic server deployed it. So here, yeah, and we got our page here. See that? And welcome to Rainbow Applications. The tab, if you see here, it came as Rainbow Applications here. Okay, if I go back here, basically, it was trying to create a web application module with this war file, view control web.war file, and deploy it to this server. Basically, that is a local server, and it displayed this is the URL where actually we got the. If I copy the URL here, and if I go here, it will give me the. See, that tab became Rainbow Applications because that's the document title we have given here, and the output text we have shown welcome to Rainbow Applications. This is the what came up here, right? If you see this page, typically there are 5 components you have to see here. The first one is the IP address. IP address or host name, where actually we are hosting this application. If you take the WAR file, deploy in the Fusion application, then this one will become this one. Oh, sorry, what app? ADF demo.com. Basically, this demo.com has 2 components inside. One is actually the port number, other one is actually URL, sorry, IP address. So in our case, IP address is this one, and it is our port number. And here, this is called the content root. This content root actually unique for any of your project. Example, you did a project and you are trying to deploy it. You did a project and you want to deploy it in your any application server, and basically you have to provide a unique identifier here, unique context root here. Example, maybe tomorrow you have to modify the application again, then you come here and modify that project and you want to deploy the project again back to the application server, then typically you have to modify this content root name. So how do you modify the content root name? Typically, if you go to the view controller and go to the projects, basically project properties, and the project properties typically in the Java EE application, here you will see the web application, sorry, context root name. So make sure you give a different root name here, then only the application will get deployed in the application server. That's what pattern you have to follow. And the next one is actually phases, which will say that you are using the Java phases. You are using the Java phases. That's what phases will say that. And last one is actually the activity name. I'm saying activity because if we go further in the ADF topics in the bounded tasks and the bean level control, you can understand why I'm saying it is activity. Okay, it is actually the activity. So if you click on that, this is the page it will come up. How this page is coming up here? Because we have this page deployed in our local application server in this context root, and it is available for us to show up any browser in my local system. Okay, right. So we have seen that how deploy in a local server. So let's go further more and see what else we can do with this with the Fusion application. So we have seen this. The next thing, typically what we do, typically what all we have done, whatever we have developed till now in our model, in our application module, we have entity object, view object, they both are registered in the application module, and this application module has a data control. We have seen that, right? As per our architecture, as per our ADF architecture, what are we have seen, right? So we have the model, and then we have the application module, which actually have the data controller. This controller has the provision to have this view object and our view object. Typically, this data control, using this data control, we can display data on the user interface, and also using this data control, we can commit data into the database. So where we can see that here, this is the data control, and it has these 2 view objects, whatever we have defined, these 2 view objects, and it has all these methods, right? Let us say I wanted to display this view object in my view object data in the front end. I want to do that. In the country view, I have the country name, region ID, and country ID. I want to display the country name example. So what we need to do, just take it and then drop it here. Okay, and drop it. While dropping it, it will say that based on the country name, as it's a country name and it's a string, ADF will identify it as a string, can be a list of values, can be a single selection, can be a text. How you want to display your view on the page, right? You want to go to the list of values, or a single selection, or a text with label, or just a text, or how do you want it? Maybe I wanted to say ADF input text with label. That's what I want. Then what actually happens? It create that entity object column name on the front end. While creating that on the front end user interface, typically internally what happens, there are several activities ADF will take care. If we have to do the same thing this is what happened here. If we have to do the same thing in our legacy applications, we have to write at least 10 lines of code to display this component and play around with the component, right? So here, this is the component got created when we dragged the country name on the applications here, on this user interface here. So there are many things. It is input text as part of the ADF framework. And this is more important, value. What value you are going to show up on the screen? You are going to show the country name here. But country name has created a pattern like this. This is called an expression language, and we are going to use this expression language variedly in the personalization of the Fusion applications. Now, what is the meaning of it? It has something called bindings. What is a binding? What actually the binding is, whenever we create a component of the user interface, if that component belongs to a model business component, typically this name has a binding associated with. What is that binding? How do I know that? How do we know that is in the same thing, in the same window, we have something called bindings. If you go to the bindings here, there it will say that the country name, what are you talking about? This country name belongs to, country name has an iterator got created, which is actually referring the country EO view. Okay, so what is the iterator? Yesterday, if some of you may know that when I talk about iterator, if the country EO view is nothing but a view object, nothing but having set of rows, if you wanted to go through row by row, then we should have an iterator, and this iterator is being referred by the country name. That's the bind, that's the name, that's the meaning of this binding, right? So once we have this binding created, okay, so that's the meaning of it. So bindings dot country name dot input value. Input value means the value of the country name. Similarly, what is the label? What do you want to, as it is an input text with a label, what is the label name? Label name is a country name, basically. And it has some properties required. Is it required? Or what is the display width? What is the maximum length? And what is the description? All those things will be coming by default. ADF will create them by default, and you can always go and override those fields. So we can go override. You can go here and you have the properties here. Here you can go here, and by default, rendered is true. If you want to make it false, you can make it false. And if you want to make the display width, if you want to make display width so some 10 or 20 like that, you can do that. And how many rows you want to display, 1 row or 2 rows, you can say that. And now the country name will get displayed on the screen. If you go here and just, there is some more architecture behind that. So, okay, this is the page. I go ahead and write again. Then again, it will just go ahead and deploy it. But this time, it will redeploy the application here and again bring up the page. So I am just closing it. While it is running, typically what happens here is whenever a Java web page got created, typically you have the bindings here, but typically what happens is there is something called data bindings dot cpx page and hello world page definition dot xml will get created. So we have the page coming up here, and which has the we have output text label, welcome to Rainbow Applications, and below that we have kept the label as an country name. So we have the country name coming up there, right? Yeah, so country name is Greece. So we didn't bring anything. We didn't have any buttons here. We just kept the text here. We kept as input text. That's why it is a free text. If it is output text, it won't be readable. We can make it as a read only, or else we can also set properties here. Input text. We can make it as read only. Probably there will be some property. We can do that. So now, if we talk about the architecture, typically what happens is whenever we create a page on the same page name hello world.jsf, there is a definition file will get created. So hello world page definition.xml. So hello world page definition.xml, this page definition actually will have the bindings and executables. So if I go to hello world page, if I went to bindings, typically what happens, it will again go back to this same page basically. So in this page definition, same thing, we will have the what bindings we have. And also if we have the multiple pages created, have a hello world page. If I got multiple pages, every page will have its own binding. How do you know where you can see the combination of this page name and the bindings? You have some page called data bindings.cpx. Here you will say that for hello world.jsf, it is the page definition ID, and if you have more number of pages, you will get the more definitions, and those mappings will be available in this data bindings. Why this internal architecture get created automatically? All this based on this architecture, data will keep displaying over the pages basically. Okay, so maybe now it makes much meaningful, but if you deploy the complex projects, then everything is very important. Okay, now. Okay, we have seen that. Now let's go a little more further. What I will do, I want to display just like this. Typically, what we need to do? Typically, we need to display the whole rows there, and on that rows, I wanted to go next means I had to go to next record, or if you wanted to go previous means I had to go to previous record. I need to do some operations, right? I just don't want to display a simple value like this. So I want to take it out. If you want to take it out, you can take it and delete it, but that deletion doesn't affect the binding because there's a binding behind that. Country name has a binding to the EO view. Those bindings won't go away. If you want to delete that, you can delete it like this here, or we have one thing called structure. Basically, you can go to the window and we can go to the structure. We have structure here. This structure again will say that we have the view tag. Under that we have document tag. Under the document tag we have a message here. Under the message we have form tag. Under form tag we have the output text tag. We have the structure here. So it is another way where actually you can see the structure. One is through this XML file, and another thing to design, another thing to structure. So here as well. So typically if you want to take out the input text, two things here, take and select it and right click it and refactor it and delete it. You should not delete just like that. Then only what happens, along deleting this on the front end, it also delete the binding. You can delete it. Or you can go to this output text and right click it. Right click it and refactor it and delete it. Either ways is okay. Or alt delete is the shortcut key. So I'm all deleting it. Oh, which one I deleted? Oh, I deleted that welcome to my, yeah. So I will go here and I will delete this one as well. Okay, I deleted it. Now what I wanted to do, I wanted to bring all my columns into my user interface. So typically what you can do here, We can get the country view one. Okay, get this one, and you can bring it up here. Okay, so if you can bring it up here, typically when you drop it, it will say that it will give the multiple options here. As you bring view object, either you can bring it as a form, or you can bring it as some carousel where you can actually go to next text on the same screen, and as a chart or a diagram, because country ID, country name, region ID, with these three combinations, we can have many visuals we can display over the screen. It will ask for all these many components. So typically we go with the ADF form or a table view. Basically, if you go with the ADF form, it will just give a form. Okay, it is going to say that these are three labels which is going to show up on the screen. And if you wanted to change the display label, you can always change it here. Or if you wanted to make it as a with label or output text with label, or how do you want it? Maybe I want to keep input text with label. Maybe I wanted to modify some data. Okay, and again, while displaying it, you want to just display these three things. Do you want to apply some navigation on top of it? Maybe going to next, going to previous, like that. Then click on the row navigation. Okay, and the another thing called submit button. Basically, the submit button doesn't have any logic yet. Basically, when I say submit, the submit button will get created, but we have to create logic on top of the submit button. That's the meaning of it. But as of now, it is dummy button. It doesn't have any meaning. And if you want a read-only form, I wanted to make it some editable form. Maybe I want to do some insert delete operations later. And fields generated dynamically at runtime. Basically, it is again works with the beans component. Beans nothing but if you wanted to perform some things, if you click on the next, apart from going to the next record, do you want to execute something else behind that? Okay, maybe if you choose a country ID as something, automatically country name should become a red color. Example I'm saying. Okay, if you wanted to change the field properties at runtime, then that has to be done programmatically. Then we have to field generated dynamically at runtime. As of now, I'm not showing that because we still gone to the beans yet. Okay, I'm going to row navigation and I'm clicking OK. Then typically ADF framework will take care of those things and automatically create a panel form layout here. It creates a panel form layout and it automatically creates the country ID here, country name here, region ID here. Not only that, it created set of operations here, that is first, previous, next, last buttons basically. So we created four things. All these four buttons it got created, and typically what happens whenever you execute this program, this page, typically along with the country ID, country name, and region ID, at the bottom it is going to show the first button, previous button, next button, last button. It shows that. Okay, so if I execute it now. So if I execute it now, it again start deploying it, and we got the page now. And it will show the country ID, country name, and region ID. And by default, first is disabled because we're in the first record. ADF has that intelligence, which we're saying that initially disable it. If you don't want that, then typically you can always go here and this first button, you don't want this action listener, should be disabled maybe. So yeah, disable button is here. You don't want to disable it here. Maybe you want to enable it. Then what you can do, you can go here. There is something called disabled. Disable here. Now here you can go here and you can just say true. Okay, it means that it won't be disabled. It will be enabled by default. You can do like that. So by default, we get disabled. I want to click next. Then typically is going to the next record, and next record like that. It has the provision. Now, how these methods came up, how these buttons came up here, how it came up here, because I think we did one step advance because we don't have much time. So how these methods came up here, right? How these methods came up here, because whenever we get a country view has some operations here, which will have the first, next, last, previous operations here. And when we drop the UO completely, automatically it got this first, next, previous, last operations automatically on my page. That is the reason I'm seeing those methods here. Okay, now example, I wanted to bring one more here. After last, I wanted to bring one more method called create insert method button. When I click on the create insert button, I wanted to get a blank row come up here, and I will enter some data there, and I will click on the commit button. So I wanted to keep it two methods here, create insert and commit button here. So what I can do, I have the operations here. Oracle has given us some set of operations here, create insert here. So what I will do, I will get it and drop it in this create insert as ADF button. Okay, I want to insert it. After inserting it, what I wanted to do, I want to commit it. Where you can commit? Commit cannot be found at the view level. Basically, it can be found in the data control level, that is at operations. So get the operations, go to commit and get the commit here. Maybe sometimes we need to roll it back, right? So I will get the rollback button here. So I got the rollback button here. I got both now. Okay, so I will save it. Now I will execute again, and I will see how this thing will come up now. So now we should have the, see that commit and rollback by default got, because the ADF is taking care of it by default, but you can always go and override what we want. Okay, so go next like that till commit and rollback is blank. If it's a create insert, it will open, it will help us to create a new thing. So I can go ahead and I will create a country name. So some Brazil, and country ID, some 200 or something. Sorry. Something like that. So by default, this 30 Brazil is not there in my database. So it's not, 30 is there, so country ID is there. So let me change it to 32. Okay, now I'm going to commit it.
Where you made a database connectivity, local database connectivity, where did you do that? In the
actually I did it on in my project. I have the database connection available already. So I created the database connections initially at the beginning of the project. Actually, that's the reason it is connecting to the database by default.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So this, now I'm going to commit it. Okay. Let's commit it. I get committed. So let us see whether we have the data in the database. So we have the 32 Brazil, 200 got created here. So from front end, we are handling it now. If we have the web page provision where we can start doing that stuff, then typically that is what all we need, basically. Okay, it is one thing. So let us have another example I wanted to show you. Typically, most of the projects, typically what we do, let us say, in this, it is a panel layout where typically we have chosen the country ID, country name, region ID like that. How about showing the country ID again, country name, or country ID, country name here, and region ID here? Maybe I want to show it in the 2 columns, example. 2 columns, and then, 2 columns basically. So here in the panel layout, we have some provision called panel form layout. We have a number of rows, a number of columns. You can say that as number of columns as 2, and maybe number of rows as 2, something like that. So if I say that, then automatically it will become into the 2 by 2. So once I execute it. Now let me show you one more thing, one more example. Not every time, example, if I wanted to go to the, let us say we have 50 records in my view. And if I go to the 30th record, I had to keep going next up to that. Okay, it's no longer available. Oh, it's changed already. See that? So you can go to next and keep going to next.
if I go to 20 records. What if I want display 20 records or 50 records completely here? When I choose that record details should come up at the bottom. I want to show a table here. At the bottom, I want to show the summary here. That's what my intention is. Then what I can do, I can again go to the country view and I can drag it on top of this form layout. And this time I will choose the table layout. Okay. And in this table layout, how the row selection, you want to know selection of single row or multiple rows. I want to choose a single row. Do you want to enable sorting? Yes. I want enable filtering. I'm not read-only table, or maybe read-only table. And do you want to generate columns dynamically at runtime? No. And I don't want to show the maybe region ID. I just want to show the country ID and country name, maybe, because country, the region ID and everything coming at the bottom for me. And country name, I want to bring it to the top. Okay. Then automatically ADF will take care of creating the beans by default here. It has a lot of properties got created here. It has a table value, which actually referring the evo-view1.collection model. And it is having the row. And it is also saying that if it is empty, then what data has to be displayed. See this bindings, country, vivo, view1, some properties actually, because I am following this expression language when I talk about the personalization. I will use this expression language very frequently if you want to customize your SaaS application. Okay, so we have many properties here, and one thing is partial triggers. Basically, partial triggers as B1, B2, B3, B4, B5. What is this B1, B2, B3, B4, B5? It is nothing but the buttons here. It is between, but first button has the B1 ID, previous has the B2 ID, next has B3 ID. So what typically happens when you click on the button, just refresh that record. That's a partial refresh. That's what we're saying here. Partial refresh, partial trigger, right? So let's close it. And then now you have to see one thing here. I got data for the panel layout from this country evo-view1 and also the table layout from the country evo-view1. What does it mean? As it is the same Vivo instance, it means we are referring the same data set. Okay, this is all same data. This view and this view refer to the same data rows basically, right? So it means whenever I choose the data here, then automatically, when I select a row here, then automatically that respective data should come up in the form layout. Okay, so let's go here and then run again. So yes, see here, we got the country name and country ID here. When I choose the country name Greece, you got the country ID, region, and country name here. If I choose the country ID India, it automatically choose the India region and country name here, because both are referring to the same view instance, country evo-view1, same instance, not even the view object, is a view instance. It means same data set. That is the reason both are interdependent. And another thing you have to observe here is it is sortable here. Okay, are sortable up and down basically. Okay, and this column is also sortable here. And also here we have the filtering. So here we see, say Spain, then automatically it will filter the Spain. If you see this, all these properties basically we still didn't expand it yet. Most of the properties will match most of the Fusion application pages. Maybe most of the times we have seen this sortable kind of thing and this look and feel, and where we can search the data, and we have something called detach, some many more properties which we can apply on top of this view objects, where typically we can keep displaying the data basically. Okay, so actually it's just a beginning. I'm just scratching the surface, just make you to understand how many ways we can explore. If we keep doing it, actually there are many more in detail concepts like programmatically changing the properties, or programmatically creating a table layout, or programmatically creating the panel layouts, or programmatically changing the properties of the fields, and also displaying the geographical layouts. Many more advanced things we can keep talking. Maybe it will take another 5-6 classes if I keep talking about the different visual representations. But I'm holding it off. And with this knowledge is good enough for me to talk about the simple examples of simple integrations. And as we are already aware of what is a business component, all we need to know how to pull the data. Once we get the data and show it up on the front end, that's all we know. That's all we wanted to make our application to work. And we were there till now, basically. Very, very basic, I would say that, but we were there till now. And this knowledge is good enough for us to talk about inbound integrations or outbound integrations, how we can do the automations and other things, basically. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if anyone interested in the ADF, I would ask you to keep downloading the JDeveloper and keep practicing. Just go through our previous sessions. If someone haven't attended, they can learn how to create the components here, AM, EVO, and VIVO. Once I have the components created, it's all practice of creating the user interfaces and playing around with that. Okay. So another thing, basically, once we create this application, right, typically if we have access to the Fusion application server, we take this WAR file, okay, and we take this WAR file and go and deploy it. Typically, where is it, WAR file? So it is a WAR file. Okay, we take this WAR file. Basically, this is the WAR file. It has the folder structure got created. It has these XML files. It has the classes files, and it has the properties files. Once the structure got created and is a JSF file, we are going to take this WAR file and get it deployed in the application server. That deployment process is a little bit different. It's a little bit extensive. Properties were there. If even to deploy that, typically we need to take help from DBA and do that. Or if we use Java Cloud Service, there's a predefined configuration available to do that. But I'm not going to show that. I don't have access for that. But I will try to share some documentation on how to do that actually. Okay. So any questions?
So this deployment is not possible on SaaS, right?
No, it's not possible.
Only on the other platforms.
On the platform, yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, if you don't have any questions, then we can connect tomorrow.